The conversation around Highguard has gotten weird because it almost doesn't seem like it's about the game. It seems like it's a bigger thing, a struggle between ideals and performative language and the people thinking it's a battle of good versus evil, but both of them think they're the good. So I want to talk about that. Let's get into it. So what's interesting with Highguard, just to throw out my experience with it so far, the Game Awards, final reveal of the show, normally expected to be a pretty big deal. Highguard, from the makers of Titanfall and Apex Legends, then they show this like bad trailer. Like, I hope that even people who like the game can be like, yeah, that trailer wasn't the best. What follows is a month of silence when we are expecting the game to release, like soon. That's what the trailer said, right? No marketing, no campaign, no previews, nothing as far as we knew. There actually was a creator preview. That's a whole different video. Maybe one day. I'll talk about it in my podcast, the Bonfire Gaming Podcast. Check it out. But Highguard comes out, and I'm really barely going to talk about the game. I've played a few hours. It's not my thing. I deleted it. All good. I don't hate it. I can see the niche. I can see that there's going to be people who are going to get into it, and that's super cool. I don't have to like everything. Not everything's for me. I think that there's some fundamental issues with it. Maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe they won't. They peaked around 100,000 players first day. It looks like it's dropped pretty substantially already, which isn't the best sign, but a game like this doesn't need 100,000 players. It needs 5, 10,000 who play often, right? And they can cater to those. That's fine. So that's that situation. And that's fine. I don't care for it. There's other people who seem to love it. Awesome, right? But the conversation that's happening around it beyond that is, like I said before, this like weird struggle between two groups of people who think they're the good guys. And this isn't the majority of people, right? Most people are kind of in the middle, looking at both of these groups, being like, man, y'all are both annoying, right? It's just a game. Move on. Either play it because you love it or not. Fine. But this conversation has turned into this thing where you have one group of people who saw that trailer and hated it and hate Jeff Keighley and hate AAA games and any live service game and anything multiplayer or, blah, 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 blah. And those people are annoying, right? I'm going to be straight up. If you check out most of my content, I'm not the biggest fan of Jeff Keighley on earth. It's fine. He doesn't care. Most people shouldn't. I find him personally kind of annoying and pretentious. That's fine. I'm sure he's a good guy. He probably loves, what's going on, what he's doing. I'm just being a little petty jerk, right? But this attitude, and you're seeing a lot of people comment on it right now, that, hating games is popular, all of that. And it feels like it's been that way, especially for the last 10 years. That it's so much easier and it's so much more common to see people just ripping on games that they don't care about or don't like, or that they don't want other people to like, and they can't believe anyone else likes the game, right? That's annoying, right? That's obviously pretty obnoxious. Don't be that guy, right? And that's been content creators, especially. I think it's been pushed really heavily by them, influencers, podcasters, all that stuff. Who realized years ago that, man, if I make a video about how much I like a game, it'll get 300 views. If I make a video about how much I hate a game, it's going to get 1,000 or 5,000 or 10 or 100,000 or 1,000,000 views, right? And I can grow my channel, and then I can commiserate with everyone else who is grumpy and mad and finds negative opinions easier to latch onto, blah blah blah. Then you have the other side of this conversation, which I will say are objectively better, right? Because I'm always going to pick people who like a thing over people who don't. But you also have this kind of pretentious pushback, this kind of performative pushback, I think, of people who maybe they like Highguard, maybe they don't. But there is a group of people pushing back on the people who don't like Highguard for whatever reason, legit or not, who are just pushing back for the sake of pushing back and kind of how the negative people just want attention and to find their fellow negative people. You kind of have a similar situation where there's people being like, oh, these people who hate this game are all stupid and they just hate it because it's easier to hate things, and are like dismissing the idea that maybe people really don't like the game. Maybe they're, someone like me who just wasn't caught by it, who just kind of thinks it's mechanically not very fun and that they made some really huge mistakes. And I find that group to be almost as annoying as the other, right? And we see this all the time. There's even a term for it called toxic positivity, right? Where you are, either extremely against the people who dare to criticize, whether it's legit or not, or you're just hyper positive about everything with a game, even if it's flawed, and even if it's flawed to the point where it like needs to be better, even if it's not as bad as some people are saying, right? I would say this toxic positivity is a huge issue with the whole platform in Xbox right now, where, and you can, if you look through my social media, you could probably find examples of me doing this. But this whole idea of being like, hey, if you have an Xbox right now, it's a ton of fun. You have a ton of games coming at you. Game Pass is insane. But you also have to be able to acknowledge that maybe their communication hasn't been the best. Maybe this multi-platform push, whether you like it or not, maybe it's going to be a failure. Maybe it won't. We'll have to wait and see. Or even games like one from Xbox, like Starfield, or even the game like Dragon Age: The Veilguard. As a BioWare fan, that's a good example here where these are all good things and it's okay to enjoy them, but you shouldn't be completely blind or ignore any criticisms to the point where it makes you look like you're in theory being toxically positive, where you may encourage bad behaviors or reinforce bad initiatives and things like that, right? So I just find myself in this weird position where I thought the trailer for Highguard sucked at the Game Awards. I thought it was weird they didn't communicate for a month until their game came out. Then the game came out. I've played it for a couple hours. I don't think it's very good. It's not my type of game, at least. Subjectively, for me, I don't like it. I don't like the way it felt to play. I don't like the way it looked. I don't like the mechanic and the gimmick that they're going for. And that's okay for me not to like those things. No, I'm not going to go out and say objectively anyone who likes it is dumb and that you can't like it, because I didn't. That's obviously stupid. But I also think it's wrong to just, the same way it would be wrong to say that everyone who likes it is just shilling for it. It's also wrong to say everyone who doesn't like it is just part of the hate train and is trying to get engagement and clicks and all of that. There are people doing that, and they make it harder to make this argument, right? But someone like me, I've said my piece about Highguard. There's a really good chance after this video I will never talk about it ever again, and that's fine. It won't be the first time this happens. It won't be the last. It's also not going to be, the first time that I'm sure there's going to be games here in the future that I adore and I love. One right now is Battlefield 6. That right now it is very popular to not like that game, for legit reasons or not. If you're a content creator who spends your entire day complaining about it, I'm going to question whether or not you truly hate it that much, or if that's just good for your Twitter engagement. If you're just another dude who can only play an hour or two a week and you're unhappy with some of the maps or the gun selections or whatever, maybe that's a different story. I think what this comes down to is just the conversation about how that you often, it seems like with all of gaming, with all of this stuff nowadays, you have three groups. You have people who are super maybe toxically positive, hyper hyped about everything, or will pick a specific thing and just relentlessly push how amazing it is, how everyone who doesn't like it is stupid, who blah blah blah, who has an agenda or whatever. And then you have the second group who are the hyper negative about everything people, whether they're influencers or not, who just will latch on to every single game, rip it apart, tear it down. I think games like Star Wars Outlaws suffered from this group of people who just made that game seem like it was abysmal and awful, when Outlaws is a great game with some flaws that have mostly been fixed, right? And you have those two groups, and there are a small number of people, but they are the loudest people. And unfortunately, especially the toxic group, are the ones who get the most engagement on social media platforms, on YouTube and things like that. And the issue with both of these groups, I think especially the more toxic side, is that there's people, at least in my opinion, in the gaming community, really popular influencers, journalists, podcasters, video makers, all that, who come off as like kind of nice, normal people who can fall into either of those two extreme groups, but especially can fall into the toxic one. And no one really ever talks about it, even though it's so obvious, right? And then the third group I was talking about is like 95% of other people who maybe have criticisms of games, maybe are get hyped and love games that not everyone does. But for the most part, you're just kind of in the middle. Games are just games. You have lots of other stuff going on in your life. And you look at these two groups, especially on social media, and you're just kind of like, oh God, this sucks, man. I wish I didn't have to hear any of these people. And I feel like that's where most people fall. And I think what sucks is that I believe those two groups, especially the more negative one, really has just obliterated gaming discourse over the last so many years. Because, there's games that like Starfield, you can't even make a video or a post being like, I love Starfield, without getting a bunch of strangers popping into that being like, well, you're an idiot because that's a bad game. You can't like that. It's bad. And I don't think that's been an organic thing. I think that's something that got pushed. And I think it's a result of, unfortunately, kind of everyone's monetized. Everyone has an opinion on social media. No one gets pushback, or they just ignore pushback they get. And I think we're worse for it. I don't think there's any way to make it better, at least not on purpose. I think it's going to take just time for people to mature a little bit and for all of us to figure out how to be on the internet and be a little more authentic and a little more real about stuff. But with everything that's been happening in the world and on the internet for the last 5 or 10 years, I suspect that day is very far away. Let me know what you think about all that in the comments. Hit the like button so more people see the video. Subscribe. I talk about games a lot. Mass Effect, Xbox, everything else. Come hang out. Check out my other videos. If you really want to support what I'm doing here, consider becoming a YouTube member to get videos like this one just a bit early. Check out all my other projects, all the other ways you can support me in the links in the description of the video. There's also an Extra Life fundraiser down there. I have $100. Let's get to 1,000. I would appreciate that. And that is all I have for this one. So until next time.